All right, well, thank you, everybody. Welcome to annual meeting. Man, this is hard to see up here. Gonna have to do one of these. Those lights are glary. All right, my low vision friends are saying get used to it. It's just, quit your whining, quit your whining. So this is the state of the company. Well, yes and no. Usually a state of the company, it's one of those things we're required to do by the Act, and the Act is a piece of legislation that dates back to 1879. And it says that the president or CEO of the company will deliver an address to the EOTs basically saying, this is how we're doing, here's how we spent money, and yes, we are listening to you. This year, I'm not going to tell you how we spent money or that I'm listening to you. But that will come out later. We are in the process of so much change at APH, changing our financial system and processes, that we did not have as much information as I'd hoped to share with you tonight about here's where we are, this is the type of year we've had. As expected, we've hit our milestones. We're doing great work in Braille, in the Reads department, in the Hive, in product development. All of that's on track and is doing really well. And we had a great appropriations year with additional funding, and we shared that with you earlier. But this year, all bets are off, because until we can get a functional house, we may be in continued resolution for the entirety of the year. So if you know someone, contact something, and contact someone, I should say, make that happen. But I do want to take this time and talk to you all. For those who don't know, I'm Dr. Craig Meador, and this is, yes. So like I said, I know this is entitled State of the Company, and it's customary for me to throw a bunch of numbers at you, talking about our amazing departments and all the growth that we've had. But like I said, we're not going to do that this year. That stuff will come to you later. But having had conversations with several of you and hearing the stories of what has transpired, not just this past year, but the past 2 years, we are all in some very familiar territory. So last night, part of one of the pleasures of this job is an annual meeting is all the other groups that have meetings prior to annual meeting. And so the Council of Schools for the Blind had 2 days of meeting, and last night was the Principal of Schools for the Blind Annual Award presentation. And having grown up in education and being an educator for many years, that's always near and dear to me. And it was one of the recipients, Conchita. I know Conchita's out there somewhere. And she was receiving an award, and she described this time in our field as a renaissance. And that caught me off guard. And it caused my brain to hit the brakes. And for those of you who know me and demonstrated already, that's a hard thing to do. And that's not because of great, deep thoughts that are going on. But, yesterday, my brain is at any moment is having a replay of yesterday's conversation about cabbage mixed with NPR snippet of urban decline. All the while, the lyrics of the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Hour are going through my brain. And so for her to throw the brakes on all of that was no small feat. So I was thinking about that and just let that idea marinate for a while. And I went home and thought about it this morning. So I tore up my speech that I was going to give, and this is the result of that. But let's talk about that idea of Renaissance. For those who are too young to remember the Renaissance, here were a few highlights. So many historians credit the Renaissance to the societal rebirth that occurred as Europe was re-emerging or coming out of the Black Death or the Black Plague. And for those who don't know what that was, it's as bad as it sounds. It was a large pandemic that shut down trade, communications, social systems, hierarchies, caused everyone to stop and reevaluate how they were living life and what they believed about life. From that horrible event came developments in astronomy, humanist philosophy, the printing press, vernacular language and writing, painting, and sculpture technique, world exploration. Some of those key figures were Michelangelo, Botticelli, Da Vinci, Raphael, Galileo, Shakespeare in the later part of that. And there are also a couple turds mixed in there as well, like Columbus and Machiavelli. But I digress. So as you can imagine, this change to thought and to art and science was not necessarily welcomed everywhere, especially with open arms. There was a good deal of resistance. People didn't want to change. Several Renaissance individuals were labeled as dangerous, as heretics, threatened. Some of them had to move to other parts of Italy and other places just to fulfill this new thought or new dream that they had. So if we take a little liberty and consider this time as a renaissance in our field, what Conchita termed last night, I think we could expect a few things to occur. The first would be systemic changes to programs and agencies. So a little Pew research here. By show of hands, how many of you or your agencies, school programs are pushing through a large initiative that is changing the way you do things? Yeah, okay, there's a lot of hands up there. So, I don't know, someone who had their hand raised, tell me one thing you're doing. This is interactive, folks. Shout it out. What are you doing different? All right. Okay. These are no small task items. Anybody else? One more. You think about it. We'll come back to you. Okay. So we also are seeing new thought leaders emerging in the field. So how many of you, by a clap or show of hands, have identified new people that you want on your staff or have added people to your staff that are leading you through these new changes? Okay. By a clap or show of hands, how many of you expanded your leadership circles? How many of you, by a clap or show of hands, can think of someone that is really causing you to rethink the way that you do things? If this is a true renaissance, we should be broadening our field and allowing groups that have been traditionally outside to come to the table. That is causing some real uncomfortable conversations. Again, by a clap or show of hands, any of you dealing with uncomfortable conversations? How many of you are now engaged on a regional or national level that is pushing change? How many of you are changing your teams or improving your facilities construction because the old structures no longer serve your current mission? How many of you are seeking outside connections or partnerships that will help you move your programs ahead? And how many of you are tired of clapping or raising your hands? All right. It's pretty much every one of us. This is the field of innovations. This is the field of innovators. You, by your nature, are innovators. And innovators are pretty exciting. So just to be clear, I'm working from this definition of what it means to innovate. And I have a slide. I'm going to click this, see if it works. What do I point this at? I'm pointing it. There we go. So innovate, to make changes in something established, especially by introducing new methods, ideas, or products. And I want to further explain that by to better meet the needs of the mission of your agency. So if that is the case, and we're all innovators, I want to share some truths about being an innovator. And these are the obvious truths. You're not going to learn anything new here. But hopefully by me repeating it, it will maybe reaffirm some of the thoughts you've been having or some of the things you have been experiencing. and I think they're somewhat worthy of reflection. So the first thing about innovators, the shared experience of innovators is what it says up on the screen, is that our dreams are bigger than our current resources or capacities. How many does that resonate with all of you? Yeah. Well, we have a remedy for that. We invite people to the dream. The only way we can do the work that we need to set out to do is to find more partners. We have to grow capacity, and sometimes that means we have to let things go. Some things that have been tried and true and a part of our DNA and nature for the last 10, 15 years do not make sense in this renaissance that we are going through. And that's a hard one because you have to find the courage sometimes to part with some favorites. We've done some of this at APH. When I first got to APH, we had over 1,500 products, 1,500 wonderful products. But as an executive team, we knew right away that if we were going to get to this point in time, 1,500 was too much to carry. And so we began this painful process of cutting away and cutting away and cutting away. And I heard from a lot of you, and I know that created some pain points for you, but it put us in a position as a company where we were ready to move into this time of change. Another point. There we go. Opportunities are challenging. That's the obvious. Opportunity is a lot of work. It doesn't matter how good it is. It's always a lot of work. It has costs associated with it. There's human capital involved. Many of you are overworked. Many of you have team members that keep taking on additional work, and there are no more hours in the day. There's capital investment sometimes that's required. Capital that you don't have, whether that is use of a machine or use of a state car or just keeping the lights on a little longer each day. And then there's always a financial commitment. Even the greatest gifts that someone hands to you, a good example of this was the Lego bricks. The Lego bricks came from Lego. They were free of charge. They came to APH. We gave them out to you free of charge. An amazing opportunity. There was a $100,000 price tag associated with that because we had to store those in warehouse, and it took human capital to manage all those orders. So nothing comes free, but it's a commitment to that dream to make things happen. Another thing about challenges. Opportunities are challenges. I said that. There's already costs. But challenges are not always opportunities. How many of you experienced that? Yeah. So I have a saying, and I'm going to be very careful with this. There's not a rainbow after every S storm. All right? So if you're digging through the manure pile looking for a pony, yeah. The best you can hope is that you'll build some resiliency out of that. So, but don't spend a lot of time always looking for that rainbow, because sometimes they just aren't there. Expect resistance. As you move through your changes, you have probably already encountered this. You're getting resistance from people who don't know and are ill-informed. You're getting resistance for people who are the most informed. Now, resistance isn't necessarily a bad thing, and all of you should have a skeptic or a critical friend within your close circle. That helps you question your ideas, making sure your motives are right and that your thinking is clear so that you can move the thing forward. The one thing you don't want is stumps. You don't need someone just being there to trip you up. So that's a key point. If someone's a good skeptic or critic that's serving the mission, great. If it's a stump, remove it. Remove it. All right. Next thing. Engage in the work that matters. Again, these are obvious truths. You are engaged in important and possibly life-altering work. So never apologize for what it costs to serve a student, run an agency, or create impact. Be sure to tell your story. People need to know about what you do and what your mission and your work. And the other one is grow your allies, your partners, and what else did I put up there? Your cheerleaders, all of which are going to be needed, and each one is a very different role. Because the cool thing about what we do, and we're in this field, some of you have been in this field as long as I have. This is my 39th year, 39th year coming into this field. Some of you have eclipsed me by a long time, but I'm starting to become some of the older timber here in the room. There is, the amazing thing about this field is it's so mission-driven. And if you haven't, I know you know that, but you should really allow yourself a time to be thankful you are in a purpose-filled line of work, because the majority of the world isn't. A lot of people, the companies they serve, may have a mission component, but their main mission is profit. It's not this field. And the thing that's so attractive about this field is people want to be part of something bigger. So tell your story, invite people in, and you can grow those partners, you can grow those allies, and you can grow those cheerleaders. So I'm going to wrap up there. But to surmise, I just want to state the obvious. We are living in some exciting times, a renaissance for our field. It's a time of innovation. It's a time of possibility. And it's a really just a great time to be working alongside all of you as we go through this renaissance together.